Greetings. My name is Nick McCarthy, and I'm the Director of Programming at NewFest, New York's leading LGBTQ film and media organization. Thank you all for sticking around for this live interactive Q&A following our virtual presentation of the marvelous A Night at Switch and Play. It was our absolute honor and pleasure to share this audience award-winning documentary with even more audiences through NewFest, and to host this live interactive Q&A with tonight's maven, moderator, and frequent guest of Switch and Play, Sasha Velour. Sasha Velour is a gender-fluid drag queen and theater artist who has performed as a guest on the Switch and Play stage many, many times. She is best known for the international tour of her acclaimed solo theatrical work, Smoke and Mirrors, and as the host of the long-running drag review, Nightgowns, which she adapted into a docu-series for Quibi, which is now coming to the Roku channel later this month. She also appeared on and took home the crown for RuPaul's Drag Race Season 9, where she was an advocate for more inclusive representations in drag, the activist reclamation of queer history, and fierce, unforgettable lip syncing and rose petals, you know. Please join me in welcoming Our Highness, Sasha Velour.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Nick. And thank you so much to NewFest for having me. As many of you know, my love for the community and the artwork that has come out of Switch and Play Drag and Burlesque Collective truly knows no bounds. So it's an honor to be here today and to say, for the record, a huge thank you to the members of Switch and Play, Miss Malice, K.James, Vigor Mortis, Pearl Harbor, Zoe Ziegfeld, Nyx Nocturne, and Divina Gransparkle. Thank you for working so hard and so beautifully together to put on fantastic shows. You have consistently shown our community what great queer acts of performance and community can look like. Your shows have sustained so many of us, even in these COVID times, and we know that takes blood, sweat, and tears, and lots of tape and glitter. Of course, a huge acknowledgement here is due to Cody and Chelsea for capturing all this brilliance in the form of a documentary, which I know firsthand is no easy feat. You can tell what detailed thinking, knowledge, and care you all put into crafting this incredible tribute, and it worked so well. Now, that being said, if you will indulge me, I would like to quickly sketch out some contextual items that I felt you might have missed out on. First and foremost, the smell of garlicky French fries with aioli, and the sensation of eating an entire basket of them while wearing nail gloves. Also, the delicious taste of a whiskey ginger and the way Miss Malice's voice changes after drinking 2 of them. The sound of soggy dollar bills hitting the tender wood stage. The view on the steps when you're a performer and you're peeking over the little railing, watching the crowd watch the performers. Heaven. The feeling, most importantly, of being among people, of being safe as you are, the smell, the sensation of other humans among other people who have your back. So without further ado, please help me welcome this incredible crowd of people that makes us all feel so safe. Director Cody Stickels, producer Chelsea Moore, and the cast of A Night at Switch and Play, Miss Malice, K.James, Zoe Ziegfeld, Divina Gransparkle, Nyx Nocturne, Pearl Harbor, and Vigor Mortis! Yay! Okay. I do have some questions prepared for the filmmakers and the cast, but for the audience who's watching, if you have I just narrowly lost my nail on that, so I'm just gonna hold it on right here. If you have questions you'd like to have answered about this film, please put them in the live chat box on YouTube, and we will those questions later in the program. But I first want to kick off with a question for Cody and Chelsea about kind of little background information. When did you first meet Switch and Play, and what would you say is the catalyst for making this documentary and sharing these stories?
That's great. This is the question we prepared for earlier, so I'm really glad I have an answer ready. I wish I could take full credit for how this came to be, but it was really Chelsea who got it off the ground. I mean, it was really her.
Yeah, Switch and Play was one of our first dates that Cody and I went on when we first were dating, and I had seen a Switch and Play poster, which had like, I'm pretty sure a picture of K.James, and was like, yeah, we got to go do whatever that is. And yeah, we walked in, and it was just an overwhelming difference and enveloping feel of like queer joy that I had like not experienced as a person before. And we just like fell in love with Switch and Play as a collective, and then also the space that they made for everyone else in the room and what the audience brought to that space as well. It just felt such an entire world. And we thought it was so special because we hadn't experienced it before. And so we just like felt the need to document that and to capture it and to preserve it. Which is when we were like, we just got to shoot. And we were like, thought it was going to be a short docu-series, like on like a web series. And yeah, then it just became this.
Yeah, I wish we had a good like thesis worthy answer, but it really just came from the gut of going to the shows and getting to know everybody.
That's what you need. It is so fierce, it has to be documented. Like, we need this documented. We need, you know, to leave this message of what is important to us, and it is a night at Switch and Play. So thank you for that. And I can attest, I love the story told in the documentary about seeing a picture of K.James and knowing that that's where you have to be, because that is also how I got to know about Switch and Play. It's just, I don't know who this human is, but I am going to go where they are. I want to ask a question for all of the performers, because I feel like one of the most beautiful aspects of the film is the introduction of your relationships with gender, both through drag and outside of drag as well, if there is such a thing as outside of drag. And I was wondering, since this amazing documentary started being filmed like 4 years ago, what can you update us about the fluidity of your gender journey and your drag's journey as well? Because I see many of you are looking quite different as well. Let's start with Vigor Mortis, right there in the middle.
Okay. Hello. Yeah, that was when I was just watching the film right before we jumped on here. That was one of the first things that I thought about was my answer would be completely different now to that question. And my answer is just that like drag really showed me how made up gender is. And I don't care for it at all, really. So, you know, my whole spectrum would have been completely different now. So yeah, I definitely feel like I have allowed, like drag has allowed me to become even more fluid than I was then when we filmed this documentary piece. And so that was really interesting to watch my former self kind of trying to figure that out and trying to find words and language for it. And the answer now is just nah. Which is very eloquent, but
how about you, Pearl? Have you accepted how sexy you are in drag?
You cut out a little bit there, but I heard the words pearl and sexy, so I think I understand your question.
Exactly.
The answer is yes. The answer is yes. Pearl is sexy. I don't know. I'm just so glad to have found drag and found a way to organically and authentically connect with my own beauty, you know? And like, I'm sure there are ways to talk about this in the world of gender and using like shared words in the discourse. But at the end of the day, I'm just really glad that I like learned how to play within this world for myself and to complete the vision that I have, that it's like, I feel beautiful. How do I communicate this to the world so that other people can know I feel beautiful? And it just all starts from there, you know? So I don't have all of like a really pretty answer for it, but I'm just really grateful that I got to learn how to use drag to play with gender in this way and to keep shifting and keep playing and to keep wearing dead women's wedding dresses.
Yes, they better life that way. Anyone else have an update? Nyx Nocturne?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say I feel like a lot has changed since then. I think when we filmed, I was just starting to become comfortable using they them pronouns all the time. That's something that had started with my stage persona as a way to test it out and to open up the possibilities of my character.
Possibilities. We might have to pause it there at possibilities and come back. Can we pass it over to Divina? And also, I have a lingering question for you about, can you get hepatitis from eating money? We never got an answer.
My doctor said probably not.
Great update. Great update for us all.
He doesn't like to give firm answers, even though he's my doctor. But yeah, he's like, yeah, just keep eating it. It'll be fine. It's treatable, so you'll be okay. Advice from a doctor. But as for the other stuff, I'm just gonna tag along with what Pearl was saying, and I'm so glad that I found this world of performing, and it's allowed so much room for me to accept what I was, what I am now, and unpack it slowly and not on anybody else's terms. As I mentioned in the documentary, I grew up in a Muslim household that was, very loving and supportive family, but a very specific version of what a woman was set, on me. And it's been nice to consider other perspectives over time. And performing has really been the game changer for me with that.
Yeah. How about Cody and Chelsea? Did this project change your experiences of gender at all, or your sense as artists and storytellers?
I'll let my nice deep baritone voice answer that, which is a little bit. Yeah, definitely. I think that was what was so impactful when we first started going to the show, is that we were like on the cusp of like whatever was going on in our own lives, that we just found Switch and Play at the right time.
Yeah, it was cathartic for us as well, like both in our relationship together, because we started dating and we were going to Switch and Play for the first time. And so our relationship together evolved over making the documentary together and now. And also how like learning through making the doc and becoming and knowing all of Switch and Play and the audience has affected us so deeply, and how our lives are and how we identify and how we see ourselves in such a like beautifully whole way that we're very grateful for.
That is really so beautiful. And it just really strikes me that drag is a place where we all come and discover like the incredible fluidity of what gender is all about, and that drag is where we can play with that. And let me ask Miss Malice and K.James for the updates on y'all's life.
Sorry, K.James has been popping in and out because our pets are literally fighting and knocking things over. So if you hear something, that's what it is. I would say that, it's like really interesting for me to watch where I was in my process of like my relationship to gender, and to thinking about like how I fit into the drag world at the time that this was being filmed. You can hear me in the doc really hesitate to call myself a drag queen, although I do call myself a drag performer. And I think for me, at that time, I felt that I wasn't like connected to how narratives around sort of like women doing drag were being articulated. They often felt not very trans inclusive, or that there was a sense of like drag, like I'm just doing drag like everybody else. And I felt like I was really trying to articulate like this commitment to certain like queer historical references and places in which I saw myself reflected, that I was trying to sort of like re-embody and connect to very specific like queer historical references. And so I still feel like I have those same commitments, but I have a lot more confidence in terms of like how I understand like where I fit in the drag world with that. And I also just feel like it's amazing to see, like, in these few years, like, the ways in which drag allowed me to, like, become much more of, like, who I wanted to be off stage as well, in terms of, like, living more boldly and less fearfully in resplendent queer high feminism.
And nothing's really changed that much for me.
Solid.
Yes, definitely solid. Consistent, gorgeous, the cheekbones that will last throughout all eternity. Miss Malice, I wanted to ask you a question about the role. This is very near and dear to my heart as well, the role of the host. And I love in many ways, because a night at Switch and Play really captures what it's like to be in the audience, minus the smells. You get the feeling that you're hosting the documentary as well. And maybe can you talk a little bit about your philosophy of hosting and the conversations you had about collaboration and kind of making sure there's representation, what representation means when you're the host and you're of this great community?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Also, like, when I first saw the doc was one of the first times I ever saw video footage of myself hosting before. I had never actually witnessed that experience before I saw the first cut of the documentary, which was a really powerful and sometimes horrifying experience. It had always been this thing that lived in a very ephemeral way. And then all of a sudden I was staring back at it. I think for me, hosting has always been about trying to figuring out like what everyone needs in the room to be invited in to the experience. It's a lot of sort of keeping your eyes on everyone, trying to like create an environment that is really welcoming. At the same time, I'm also the person who is like making space for the performers in this very real way, setting the tone, making sure that they are going to be received in a way that they can bring whatever artistry they have to that stage, and the audience will hold it and show up for them in the way that they should and need to for a particular piece. So it, I think, involves a lot of sort of communication or like intuiting on my part of like what particular performers are going to need. Sometimes those are explicit conversations, like how does this piece need to be framed, or like where should it go in the lineup, right? Like how do you think it needs to be positioned or contextualized, like for the audience to show up for you in that particular way. It's also a lot about figuring out how to make a really like fun and lighthearted, exciting, joyful atmosphere while also firmly like really setting some boundaries and making sure you're initiating people into the space in a way that is going to feel good for everyone. And so that's something that we've kind of all honed together over the years, that like sometimes I'm the mouthpiece for, but that really is something that strategies we collectively have defined and that we often sort of physically model for one another, like especially me and Zoe, but not just me and Zoe, like truly all of us in many ways are protectors and initiators into the space.
Let's pop over to Zoe, and I want to talk a little bit about the role of the stage kitten, the sexy stage manager, and also I didn't ask you for your updates.
Yeah, I'll start with gender updates. It's actually really interesting. I'm working as a nanny right now, and the closest thing I've ever felt to what I would describe as dysphoria is having people interact with me out in the world with a baby. So it's actually been a really difficult time for me around my gender, because pretty much the only time I'm being perceived out in the world right now is as a mother, which is not it for me. It's not. And so I've been having sort of this spiral about like, I never want to be a mother. It's not for me. I don't really feel like a woman particularly. I know I did at one point, but I think maybe it's just because I didn't realize that I had a choice. And so watching the documentary right now is wild because Cody and Chelsea showed up and started filming at some critical times in my shift. It's, as you see, they caught my first major body hair explosion on stage. It doesn't really get
little.
What?
There's so little of it there, compared to now.
It's true. It's really flourishing right now.
Yeah, exactly.
They also caught the first time I ever wore boxers on stage, boxer briefs, which was also the first time I was wearing them in my life. And it's like all these little things. That was a while ago. I've been doing this for a while, and it's nice to be reminded that like my gender has been for many years, and it's not new, and I don't need to panic. It's just a challenging time to have a gender, but it's not me. I'm okay. I'm not a woman, and I don't have to panic about it. So it's nice. Thank you for this film. I really appreciate it. Yeah, what do you want to know about being a sexy stage kitten?
What do you think people don't appreciate about it? Something that the audience or even the performers need to hear about the role of the sexy stage kitten.
I feel very appreciated. I feel like Switch and Play and a few other shows I do, including Nightgowns, have created spaces, have given me moments to be. I'm still an artist. I'm very present. My work is very visible and very recognized, and I get applause and I get a curtain call, and I take my moments, and I don't feel like I'm getting away with anything. Like I feel very, and people see me running around sweating, sexy and sweating. So there aren't any secrets. Everybody knows what's up, and I'm grateful for that.
Since Nyx is back, your computer has allowed you to come back and join us. Thank goodness. We want to hear an update on your possibilities and your gender possibilities at the moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. Things got chaotic over here for a hot second as my internet went out and I went like sprinting around to reboot this router. So I'm very glad to be back with y'all. But yeah, I guess what I had been like saying was that, yeah, that this really, I think for a lot of us, and certainly for me, the filming of this documentary hit at a very crucial point, where I know I was, like gearing up to kind of step into myself in a way that I hadn't been able to before or hadn't felt ready to yet. And so I felt in previous times viewing it that I've always regretted not talking about gender more, but it's also, this is a picture of where we were at that point. And without that point, I wouldn't be where I am right now with my gender and with myself. And despite how outrageous like my character is on stage, I've always said that that's just me, and that I know that it's like this demon creature or fetish beast or whatever it is that I am up there, but it's always felt like that is very much me. And I think since then, especially in having to do so much talking about what I was doing, why I was doing it, what it means, it's only become more me. And so I've been able to feel much more confident and embodied in my like non-binary identity. I go by Nyx on and off stage right now, including in a corporate day job. And that has been fine. And I think that just the merging of who I am on and off stage continues to happen. And that's been really beautiful and important.
That's so exciting. Thank you so much for sharing. I think we have some audience questions that we can pop over to. Fantastic. Can everyone see this question? So this question is from Mauve and Strawberry. How has working in an environment that blends drag and burlesque changed your view on each art form individually? Does someone want to jump into this one? Fantastic question.
It's hard because I want to think about it for a while. We don't have time for that. Just so much respect for both and for the building blocks that are the same and also radically different. And I feel like I've become a better drag performer because I spend time with burlesque folks. Like I have, like my drag performances have become more compelling and more interesting, and I've learned how to stand still because of watching burlesque folks, and just how like the tease really is such an important part of it, and being able to just sit in it and let people revel in whatever moment you're creating. Because I would not stop moving when I first started doing drag. Every 2 seconds was another thing and another thing and another thing. And truly spending time with the beautiful people who in my life who perform burlesque really taught me how to like allow people to view me in a way that I was not comfortable with before. So yeah, it feels that part of it for that's the part of it that I can speak to, coming from drag to kind of a burlesque.
Require them to view you, not just allow it.
Right. Right. Which I'm still learning how to do, but more and more every day.
How about from the burlesque side? For like Divina or Zoe has.
I'll go.
Yeah.
So I started off doing burlesque for many years, and then was blessed with Switch and Place, welcoming arms, an email I'll never forget receiving in 2015 that changed my life. After having done their show for like our show, just a couple of times, when I was doing mostly burlesque shows, I always liked towing that line of like a little off. I wasn't trying to be a very, I wasn't trying to be clear cut with my gender or the way I looked. I wasn't trying to be sexy. I was trying to make it a little uncomfortable and weird. And then being at Switch and Play around drag kings, drag queens, all kinds of drag that I had not been normally performing with, just made me realize how much more room there is for somebody like me in this world. And it just brought like a whole new level of love for drag, because in my mind, it had always been such a separate thing. And years later, Malice is like telling me, she's like, you are doing drag. You do understand that, right? And it took me a long time to even think about that being a reality. So I don't know, the ability to blend the two has really brought a love and appreciation for both as individual art forms, if that makes any sense.
It makes so much sense.
Divina, not only are you doing drag, but I feel that you taught me how to do drag in so many ways. And I just want to say that like my drag like came out of me trying to like be some kind of drag performer surrounded by drag kings, and then I feel like a bunch of burlesque performers showed me how to do drag. So I feel truly like the child of drag kings and burlesque performers, and Switch and Play has always been so nourished by burlesque artists and artists who combine all of these forms.
And I'm just gonna add on that I've been doing my history research, and it's clear that like as you take it back, you really can't separate these art forms. Like the queer people who have been strapping on the trappings of gender and entertaining each other, and some straight people who may or may not get what's going on, is age old, and we don't always work together, but we really should be. And I know that we have another question ready from the audience, which is from Savannah Montgomery. What was the hardest part of filming these live performances? This one we might want to start with Cody and Chelsea, actually.
That's my sister who asked the question. The challenges of filming, I mean, I think for me, it was like being prepared and then also not freaking out when none of that happened. Because what happened, what would come out of it was like beyond my wildest dreams of like what we thought was going to happen. You know, like watching pieces of the doc now, I remember like where I was sitting or standing in the space in the back room and just like, oh, this part, I was like crying, being like, I can't believe this is like happening and our cameras are like getting this. Like, yeah, that's what everyone brought something more and performed in such a way that was like beyond what we could have like stuck to.
Yeah.
So letting go.
Live coverage, having the cameras in place before the show started, so that because you can't change it once it's going, so you have to be ready. Make sure that the mic's in the right spot. Make sure you got multiple cameras so you don't miss any wonderful, perhaps lap dancing moments.
Yeah, for anyone who hasn't been to one of these shows in person, I literally don't even understand how you found a place to stand and see the stage. It's like when you are a performer walking to the stage, you are climbing over excited people, the community on the ground. They carry your feet practically to the stage. So well done getting such gorgeous shots that like, so it's movement, it's beautiful. How about for the performers? Was there something different or scary about having the cameras there? Yes. In other words.
Well, I mean, at least for me, I just kind of had to pretend like they weren't there. That's the hardest part for me is knowing that this is being filmed and knowing that someone will be watching me back, because usually when you're in that space, like you perform and then it's gone. Or it's like you can bring back the memories, but you don't have to watch it over and over again.
I was gonna say it wasn't in the moment of filming. It was the day that we as a family sat down to watch like the first screening of it, that like, oh fuck moment of like, this is there. It's like, it's no longer this passing moment of joy and madness on a stage. It's not this like fleeting joy. It's there. It's on film. So that, I think it became scarier after. And then really special and beautiful and all the other feelings. But yeah, that sense of permanence was a little terrifying.
Let's see if we can grab one more question. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I wanted to say something. I think something that I also really loved about this process was the B-roll footage, like the footage that I wasn't expecting. When I didn't know a camera was pointed on me, and because like when you're in front of a interview situation, you can tense up and you don't really know what to say. And when you're performing, you can just get into the zone. You're like, just ignore the camera, like Kay said, and perform to the camera. But with B-roll footage, you're just like, or like footage where you don't know you're being filmed, you're just so absolutely natural. And I remember seeing the footage where I'm like literally bouncing up and down like a tic tac, you know, just like so giddy backstage, or like pointing at someone doing something amazing. And then I'm just like, is that how I am in real life? That's hilarious. Like, that's amazing. I want to be my friend. Like this, I'm so fun. But now, I don't know, it was such a gift to see that. It's such a gift to see that from someone else's perspective, you know, because you never get to see yourself in live in like the moment of experiencing joy.
One of my favorite moments as a viewer are those really real backstage moments where you can see you interacting, the conversation about different kinds of tape. Like that's what it is like back there. And those are the important conversations we've got to have. Let's pop back to that question that I got too short from Olivia Chiaravalli. Question: how have you all maintained the feeling of community throughout the pandemic, or do you have any advice for finding queer community during this time? I know that is one we are all thinking about. Anyone have sage advice that they want to share for all of us?
Don't know if it's sage, but we started trying to hop on Zoom every once in a while and hang out as a family, and just talk and things like that. And I think that an important thing to remember too, or like something that I've had to remind myself, is that there's no way to fix it. This sucks. It just does. It sucks. And it's okay to let it suck. And it's different and it's not the same. And I miss my friends and I miss my family, and that is real. And I don't need to try to make that I don't have to try to make that okay. It's not okay. It sucks really badly. So then knowing that, yes, the Zoom calls are exhausting and there's so much good screen, bad screen stuff going on where, I'll spend all day working, but will I watch TV at the end of the day? Yes, I will, and things like, things like that. That is still connecting with community. That is still doing something. And that's something that we've been trying to do, just trying to give ourselves the space to say, okay, this is something and we can do this. And I'm not really sure, about finding new community. A lot of us found community online to begin with. I know I did. Tumblr was my thing. That was really a place where I learned about queerness and things like that. And I don't think that has changed all that much. But these places, these queer havens that we're trying to create, the whole point of us, continuing to try to do this through the pandemic is so this way we can continue to do it afterwards as well. And they're not going to disappear. We'll come back because that's what queer folks do. Is that, we just keep coming back like weeds or beautiful spring flowers, whoever you want to be. So, I don't know.
So true. Unfortunately, we are at our very last question, which we'll bring up audience question, bring up on the screen from Shayna. Does seeing yourself in such a gorgeously photographed documentary cement your status as an icon in your own eyes? And if the answer isn't yes, you're wrong, but I would love to hear your responses. This is for everyone. Yes.
Yes. It's easy to forget sometimes. So it's really special to have the object to return to reflect back to you. For me, at least, that the answer is, in fact, yes. Thank you. Yes.
Although I do wish we had staged at least one iconic fight, just something completely staged, huh?
Right?
Yeah.
It's not too late.
Yeah, what do you want to fight about, Pearl?
I'm gonna go on Instagram
storyboard this later
and just start some fights.
Well, sounds like maybe there's a sequel in store for a brawl at Switch and Play. This is all the time we have. Unfortunately, I want to again thank all of these incredible creators here in this chat: Cody Stickels, Chelsea Moore, the incredible collective of Switch and Play featuring Miss Malice and K.James, Pearl, Divina Gransparkle, Zoe Ziegfeld, Vigor Mortis, Nyx Nocturne. Of course, a huge thank you to NewFest for screening A Night at Switch and Play several times, cementing its legendary status. And thank you to the incredible audience who joined us this evening and asked fantastic questions. We love you so much. We will see you back at the drag shows. Have a wonderful night. Good night, darlings. Mwah.